Hi all, I have another fascinating encounter to show you between Leela and Stockfish. This was in the TSEC bonus match between Leela ID 32329 and Stockfish 18122721. So a developer version to be Stockfish 11 at some point perhaps. So E4 from Leela, the opening book is the razor sharp Sicilian Sozin variation, and it went like this. Yep, quite far in again. So here, G4, knight C5, this is the end of the book. So this particular position seems to have some good attacking prospects, especially for white. I'll be favouring white here generally. But what can Leela do with the position? Well, the very first move Leela plays here seems actually quite stunning. So out of book and already a bit of a shocking move. What would you play here with white? If I give you 5 seconds. Okay. Knight F5. Yeah, this is actually really strong. And it looks extremely thematic. If it's actually taken, this is actually a really strong attack. There's ideas of knight D5, for example. So say knight takes and then knight B4 to parry knight D5. That leaves the D4 square, kind of weakness of the last move. And F6, black actually gets blasted here. For example, like this is one example where Queen G4 is mating. There's not enough time to defend. There's no resource to defend, basically. That would have to start giving up the bits and just get mated. So it's a really dangerous attack here in this position. If we have a look at this again, instead of knight B4, if bishop F6, then knight D5, and you might think of queen D8. The problem is bishop B6 is in the air, but first even queen H5 is possible, and it's just crushing. This position, because of bishop B6, is absolutely crushing. For example, if this is the strongest move, I'll show you why. Well, that's terminal. If the queen moves, then there's knight takes F6, winning the queen. And it's going to be mating on H7. But whatever else, bishop B6, for example, B5, bishop B6, nudging the queen for knight takes F6. So it's actually a really nice crushing move. First move out of book. Brilliant. Now, it's ignored with B5 though. A bit of a cold shower move. However, yeah, there's pressure on D6 as well. So the bishop just gave itself up rather than trying to move or anything. So knight takes E7, queen takes. How valuable is this dark square bishop here? It hasn't got a counterpart. We have G5, bishop B7, H4, and now knight A5, which unveils pressure on E4 here. And that is actually supported with F3, rook FC8. And now the knights might be conspiring for knight takes B3, so white gets out of the kind of pin, potential pin of the C pawn. B4, knight A4, knight A takes B, A takes. Now knight takes A4, B takes. Now D5, so quite energetic play from black, but we can see it's almost like one of those French defense games now. It's a French defense pawn structure. E5, and here Stockfish plays an active move, perhaps fearing B3 in its own digital way. Fearing B3 from white, it actually plays B3 itself. If we have a look at this position, if, for example, A5, B3, it's actually quite pleasant for white, more so for white, I would believe. Technically, yeah, it looks like an advantage for white. So, yeah, it's interesting that Stockfish goes a bit wild here with B3. It's taken D4 and another pawn sack, so liberating the position, liberating the bishop, putting pressure on the B file. Seems quite rosy. Is there a downside to this? King A2, queen B7, queen D3, piling up the pressure. White is basically compelled to do this exchange sack to neutralize the pressure. And maybe say it wasn't so rosy. There was a price to that liberating double pawn sack by Stockfish. So here we have rook D1. Now rook B4 is played. Interesting position indeed. If rook D8, bishop C5, it seems as though this is actually favourable for white. This scenario, white can actually grow that advantage. The bishop's actually quite good here. With bishop d6, there's going to be rook d5 unless black sacks back the exchange. So it's better for white. So we have black trying to play actively to hit h4. h5, getting the rook to go over there if it wants really the h-pawn. Here, if, for example, a5, rook takes d5, that's not very good at all for black. If rook d8, bishop d4 cuts that rook, safeguarding the h-pawn. And, for example, this position, if a5, bishop c3, and then taking on a5, these pawns are pretty dangerous in the endgame, so it doesn't matter about the h5 pawn. So it's actually quite difficult, this endgame for black. So we have rook h4, rook takes d5, rook takes h5, rook a5. It seems, yeah, there's a long-term thing here, a problem for black, that these pawns are going to grow in strength. Bishop d2, rook f2, rook d6, f6, g takes, now e6. So this is actually quite a dangerous pawn in its own right. Now we have bishop b4 here, bishop a3, rook c6. Now b4 here, rook f4. On rook takes a4, b5 is really strong. There's two dangerous passed pawns now. This is actually enough to guarantee a winning advantage, as you might expect. This position is just crushing, for example, like that. So rook f4, a5. Okay, a6. Yeah, black's just in big trouble, basically. Takes on b7 now, but check. Check. And yeah, if the king took there, then rook d5 check picks up the rook. So king c7, rook d8, and it's all over by the shouting. Okay, white's just a whole bishop up. It's resigned here. Basically, both engines thought it was crushing for white now. So yeah, it was an interesting clash. Razor sharp Sicilian defense variation. First move out of book. Leela, unlike the previous two games we've seen yesterday and before yesterday, seems to the force was strong in this particular variation. She knew exactly like the way to play it, and it's already a strong attacking position though. I think in the other positions, especially in the Frankenstein Dracula variation we saw, it's actually hard to play, but this was potentially easier to play with dynamic stuff going on to favour the attacking player, and Leela on the attacking side, it seems, more than black. So the exchange sacrifice punished the double pawn sack, basically. The endgame had great long-term prospects for that exchange sacrifice. I hope you enjoyed this game, got something out of it. If you did, please click on the top left box, which should appear shortly. Become a member at chessworld.net, my own chess correspondence server. You can play against other YouTubers, or even me. I invite people for games sometimes. You can also check the YouTube analysis in advance of these games from the improved menu, learn from the Masters YouTube order button. Comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe with the notification bell. Really appreciated. And also check out the new Teespring store in the description. Thanks so much.